there, I'm Anne-Margaret with Raise the Vibration, and today we are practicing AromaYIN. The theme of today's class, I'm so excited, is creation. And I dressed all in black just to remind us that when we have nothing, when we're at the rock bottom, we're at a space where we are feeling like there's no light, there's only darkness, there's such infinite possibility to create. So I'm super excited about class today. I'm so glad you're joining me. And before we begin, I just want to make sure you have a few things, just as much as you've got with you. If not, if you don't have everything, that's okay too. If you've got a couple yoga blankets or even just blankets off your bed, a couple of blocks, yogic blocks. If you have a strap, if you don't have a strap, you can grab a tie or a belt or anything like that would be great. And then gather up your essential oils, grab your case of essential oils if you've got them, and I'm gonna instruct you through what we're gonna use in each pose. So, if you're unfamiliar with AromaYIN, AromaYIN is quite possibly the juiciest style of yoga ever. I created this style of yoga because I wanted to have something that we could go to when we didn't feel like doing anything, when we just needed to receive, when we weren't up to the chaturangas and the downward dogs and the super active postures, but needed to practice yoga in a way that really had a multidimensional impact and benefit. So we weave together yin poses that stretch the connective tissues, the fascia, the ligaments, the tendons, and we usually put that at the beginning of the practice. And then we get into some restorative poses as well. Throughout the entire hour, we're going to be doing some visualization around this theme of creativity and how it relates to each chakra point. Another element of this is aromatherapy. So if you've got doTERRA oils, that's the #1 company that I recommend. Grab them, but if you've got anything, just grab it. I only recommend putting it on your actual skin if they are doTERRA, which is a therapeutic grade. But if not, you can just waft it underneath of your nose. That's fine too. So before we get started, grab something grounding, like an oil that's grounding, like cinnamon or something earthy. I really love the aromatherapy balance and just putting a little bit on the soles of the feet. And again, I only recommend putting some very specific oils on your actual skin. If not, just breathe it in. Oops, I closed it. There we go. And just take a deep breath in. Our first pose is a yin pose, so before we get into it, it's going to be a little bit more active than the rest of the class. I want us to get started by placing the palms down. And you can sit up on a bolster or a blanket, something to elevate your seat to ease it up, and close your eyes. With the palms facing down, we are connecting with that groundedness of the root chakra located at the base of the pelvis. And there's a beautiful quote that we'll start with today that says, life isn't about finding yourself, it's about creating yourself. So as your eyes are closed and you're beginning to connect with your breath more consciously, let your exhale be courageous enough to truly let go of all of the breath. And at the bottom of the exhale, take a little pause. You know that that next breath is going to come in, but take a little pause. And then soften and receive that next breath. And now exhale it again. Hold it out. Soften and receive. Keep this pranayama going. So keep going with this breathing technique. Exhale it out, hold it out for a couple beats, and then soften to receive the breath. We'll be doing this breath for about 1 more minute. Keep grounding the energy as you're connecting with the space inside of you. When we have the courage to let go of what we know, or what we have, or what we hold on to as our foundation, or our belief system or our security, when we have the courage to let go, like we are doing with the breath here, and truly let go, then we only need to soften to receive and make space for something new, something more in alignment with your soul. Just a couple more breaths. Feel the space within you, emptying out your breath, and maybe even add a little pull of the belly button into the spine to really get all that breath out. Sometimes we feel like in order to create change in our life, we have to make it happen. But let this breath be a reminder on a subconscious and conscious level that you only need to soften and align yourself with the vibrational frequency of what you desire, and then open to that to receive it. Last time, exhaling everything out. Hold it out and feel that little, hold it for like 3 times as long. And then feel that little panic that happens like, oh, I gotta breathe. Don't do it. Not yet, not yet, not yet. Let yourself relax. And then receive. Great work. Bring your palms together. Change is not easy, but it's a guarantee in life. It's a constant. We always know the one thing that is guaranteed is that things will change. But it's how we choose to be in the face of that change and how we use that change creatively is what matters. It's what we must focus on. So when we're feeling that unsettling feeling, like with the breath all the way out before we take that next inhale, can we trust that all we have to do is let go and receive? Let's share 3 ohms to start. Inhale. And slowly roll open the eyes and welcome back. All right, let's stand up. If you've got a wall nearby or something you can put your hands on, the first shape that we're going to do is called L shape. We'll stand about 1 leg's length away from the wall, placing the hands on the wall about hip height, and then allow the chest to sink down in between the arms. You don't want to be too far back that you're leaning into the wall. You want those legs underneath of you so you feel nice and steady. So go ahead and find your space. Close your eyes once you get there, and let the head truly drop down into this L-shaped position. Be sure that the eyes stay closed here, because what we're doing in starting off with this root chakra pose, it is also connected to the heart center, anahata, which means unbeaten. It's translated from Sanskrit into English as unbeaten. It's our center of courage, really having faith to be able to step forward and allow our unique gifts or our radiance to shine. And we're starting in this pose too because when we close our eyes in L shape and continue your breath, make sure your breath is nice and steady, it feels like we're hanging over this precipice that all of us desire at some point in our life to jump off of, take the leap, and fly. Let the wings appear, trust that the wind carries us, and find that leap of faith that takes us from where we are to where we want to be. So, yes, we can always self reflect. We can always read books that help us learn more about ourselves. But how are we creating ourselves consciously? We're going to be here for about 1 more minute. Make sure you're spreading out your fingertips on the wall. You can't really do this pose poorly. So just breathe where you are. Trust that you've got it. Let that head release. And breathe. We're getting a nice opening in the shoulders. If you're not feeling the backs of your legs stretching, make sure you straighten the legs, and then you can even walk your hands down the wall a little bit more, or allow your pelvis to tilt forward even more, and you'll feel the back of the legs. Great. Stay here. Another few breaths. So in your life, in just the beginning meditation that we've had, what is it that you want to create? Where do you feel like you're just kind of bumping around or going through the motions, or life is normal or kind of autopilot? Maybe someone else is driving the bus and you're in the passenger seat. Think about what area of your life that involves. Your physical body, your emotional self. We're going to explore all of that through the chakras today. But how does this actually relate to a specific area that you really care about? Take 5 more breaths in this pose. You showed up to class today to take care of your physical body. And not just your physical muscles and bones, but also your nervous system. All right, now that you're in the pose, let's slowly come out. We're going to walk the feet toward the wall. And now just bring your forehead up to the wall, keeping your palms on the wall. Let yourself steady. When we come from being down up very quickly, you can sometimes get lightheaded. So just stay here, breathing, relaxing, and then come back up. Great. Next, we're going to come down to the floor. This is one of the favorite poses for a lot of people. It's called Happy Baby. We're moving from that grounded energy of the physical body in that root chakra now into the hips. So laying on your back, and I would have a blanket just nearby in case you need it, okay? Have it nearby. Come onto your back. Happy Baby is bringing the knees toward the armpits and holding the outsides of the feet if your hips are down and you still have that arch in your back. If you're lifting your hips at all, slide down onto your shins and hold this pose. If you really want it to be restorative, you can do this pose against the wall and have the wall just right behind your feet, so you don't have to hold your legs. Couple options, whether you want to make it more restorative. So taking your Happy Baby, whatever version, close your eyes, and if you want to grab that citrus oil that you've got, it's a great thing to do to breathe in. Maybe place right on your lower belly where that second chakra is. So just breathe it into your body. So any sort of oranges, lemons, any citrus, tangerines, breathe that in. And if you don't have any oils, just envision that. Envision and use your imagination. Our brains are incredible. So imagine orange, fresh cut orange, and the juiciness of it. Keep in this Happy Baby. Stay here. We're going to be here about another 2 minutes, so hang in there. So as we move from the physical body of the root chakra now to the second chakra, we go from groundedness of the earth element to water. Now the water element of the second chakra really connects us with the water element of our emotional body as well. So connecting with the rises and the falls of our life, the creative aspect of the inner child and what the inner child is asking of us, and being able to go with the flow, listening to the guidance that we're receiving and allowing us to row down the stream rather than keep rowing up the stream. We're just kind of going along for the ride and not really actively paddling. So for your area of your life with this particular creativity, how can you bring more of an intentional balance into how you're creating this area of your life, while at the same time listening to where life is kind of steering you? Why are the emotions a part of this so much? Keep breathing, stay in the pelvis. I know it might be getting intense. If it is, you can always take a break. The emotions are referred to many times as our guidance system, the emotional guidance system. When we're feeling grief around something or unsteadiness or anger around something, it's our emotional wisdom or our emotional intelligence advising us to change, to shift something in our life. So, in the final breaths of this pose in Happy Baby, what are your emotions telling you about this area? Have you felt exhausted and just the energy is low, feeling a little sad or resentful or resigned, feeling like it's not possible, losing a little faith? Stay with that just a little bit longer, but bring your feet down, put the soles of the feet together and just the knees apart for a moment, just to rest here. Deep breath in. If you found an emotion that you know is more of a pattern in this area, is there an oppositional emotion, something on the higher frequency end of the spectrum, something that excites you, something joyful, bringing in passion, reigniting more of an inspirational or inspiring approach to this area? What would that be? What emotion could you cultivate? Because we can cultivate our emotions. Good, good, good. All right, so our next pose as we're moving up the chakra system is the third chakra. And we've got the chakras everywhere. We've got 3 chakra systems here in front of you and one above you can't see, but you've got 3 chakra systems. So the third one is the yellow color right at the solar plexus. We're going to take core release for this chakra because core release, it puts a gentle pressure on the solar plexus where it's the center of our identity. This core release, go ahead and grab your blanket in a quarter fold and we will roll this blanket up lengthwise. Now, if you've got a pretty thick blanket, you might want to open it up to the next width, because this might be even too intense. If it is, once you get down there, you can always even unroll it a little bit so it's less bulky underneath of you. So core release is a very simple pose, and if you've got a second blanket or a small bolster, you'll roll it up the same way if you've got a blanket. And if you've got a small bolster, it's already rolled for you. And you'll place it at the back of your mat. Now the core release, you want to fold like a mountain. So it's got like an apex of the triangle right at the top. That's going to go in the soft fleshy part. So let's find the sternum, the hard bone right between the 2 ribs. Feel the ribs and how they come down. And then right at the top of the ribs, if you go down just an inch, there's a nice, super fleshy area that's a little sensitive too. Why is that sensitive? Because it's your diaphragm. So if you ever caught a ball right in that area and it knocked the wind out of you, it's because it hit the diaphragm and literally knocked the wind out of you. So that's where you're going to place the apex. Laying down. Oof. Yes, it'll be a little intense. And as you've noticed, I placed the ankles on the top of that blanket or the bolster behind me. Your arms can go underneath the sides of that V with the blanket, or they can go up by your head. Whatever is comfortable here, you decide. Now, one thing you want to make sure of is just make sure that the blanket is not underneath your ribs or your hip bones. We want this blanket to be like a deep tissue massage in this fleshy part of our abdomen. Once you're there, close your eyes. This can be very intense, so have patience with yourself if you're feeling like it's a pretty intense pose for you. Just breathe. You'll begin to feel the heart beating in that area because an added amount of blood flow is now bringing it into that area. Like when you get acupuncture and it brings more blood flow into the area that it's addressing, or massaging an area, we are massaging in a deep way just by laying on this blanket. If you've just eaten, you might want to take nothing underneath your belly, just lay on your belly. All right. We're going to be here about another 3 minutes. So hang tight, breathe, and allow any emotions or anything that comes up. Really focus on releasing as best you can with your exhales. So I've chosen core release as our third chakra pose because when we're creating something new in our lives, it can be very rattling for our egoic center of the third chakra. So this is where we connect with our identity, how we identify with things in the world, how we are, how our personality is, different from our spirit, but how our personality is, the face that we show the world, the archetypes that we embody. And in order to effectively invite change into our lives, we must let go of who we once were for who we are becoming. Now, this doesn't mean we have to compromise our values or what we hold dear, our priorities, but our relationship to ourselves, what we can and cannot do, what's possible for us, we must place on the back burner and be willing to lean into that precipice, that unknown, so that we are having that experience of finding that leap of faith and discovering our wings so that we can fly, discovering our strength so that we can handle something that before we couldn't do or we didn't think we could. If you want, turn your head to the other side, and I'm going to give you an option if you want to make this a little bit more intense. If you don't, just breathe where you are. So we have about 1 more minute left in this pose, and if you want to bend your one knee up and then let the other knee bend up, and then just begin to circle with the knees so that you're just allowing your feet in the air to have a little bit of movement. What this does is it allows there to be even more of a massage happening in the torso. All right, now if you want to go a little bit deeper, you could reach back and take a hold of the feet. Now soften in the belly so you really invite in the blanket into your belly, so you're not hardening your abdominal wall, but you're relaxing it. And if you'd like, you can lift up, finding bow pose for a few breaths. Make sure that when you go up, you are not hardening the wall of that abdominal area. This can be very intense. Good, just a few more breaths here. If you're ready to come out of it, you can come out of it in the next 5 to 10 breaths, whatever you choose. We're just gonna lift the hips up, walk the knees forward, opening them wide, and sit back in child's pose. Move your blankets out of the way and just lower the forehead down onto the floor. Arms can be in front or back by your feet. Great work. So keep the reflection going now that we're in child's pose. What new identities or archetypes could you imagine that could encourage you into a new identity? Maybe it's a leader archetype or a teacher. Maybe it's the seductress or the hero or the monk. Maybe you need some time by yourself. Maybe it's the hedonist, stepping in more to pleasure in your life if you really have been robbing yourself of that. The mother archetype, not only for your children, if you do have them, but for yourself. What archetype could you take on as a new identity because you are creating yourself rather than finding yourself? It's It's a moment-to-moment creation. Okay, let's go ahead and slowly roll up. Let's take our next pose. So place one of your blankets just to the side. And I like to use one blanket underneath my hips for this next one. It's called Twisted Arrow. We'll take our quarter fold and then fold it once more for that eighth fold, and then one more time for a nice little seat, or you can sit on a bolster. Now I like to have a belt for this next one, just in case my hamstrings are feeling a little tight. We're going to open up the left leg first out to the side and pull in the right knee. You're going to turn the bolster or the blanket you're sitting on so that it's facing the same way as your pelvis. Got it? You might not need this blanket underneath if you're very, very flexible. Don't worry about it. Just sit on the floor. Now, Twisted Arrow is a forward bend, but then it also incorporates a twist to incorporate a nice stretch along the side of our chest and the armpit. I chose this one for the heart chakra because it really gets underneath of the armpit area. Usually we just open or we close, but how about we stretch today and get some spaciousness in there? Sound good? So if reaching for your foot is just super far away, then grab your belt and you've got that distance and extension of the arm. So we're going to bring that right arm all the way over, take a hold of the belt, and then bring the left hand back behind you. You can wrap it around your back, or you can just drop it on the ground so it's more restorative. And then let the right ear fall towards that left knee. And if you've got the foot, you can grab the foot with your hand. That's great. If not, use the belt. So find your Twisted Arrow. We're going to stay here for 2 minutes. It's a long time. So find your position. Make sure you're not going to 100% right away. Take about 70%, and let gravity begin to do the rest. Good, so we're moving up to the heart chakra, and this is the center of our loving compassion, our sense of acceptance, bringing our courage and our light into the world, allowing the identity and the brilliance of that third chakra and the creation of our identity into the world, but filtering it through that heart. So we're doing it with love, we're doing it with a oneness and a compassion. Breathe into the stretch underneath of that right armpit, down the right side waist. As you think of this area in your life, change requires us to bring loving compassion. Otherwise, it turns into shame. And sometimes when it turns into shame, it kills the wind in our sails. It knocks it right out. So if we desire a change, we do not want to start with shame. We want to start with compassion. We want to start with love. Whatever you're desiring in that area to create for yourself, there is a reason why it looks the way it does now. Got about 1 more minute in this side. So can you step into the heart center, flexing the muscles of compassion? If someone else were in your shoes, can't we always give the greatest advice and offer endless compassion about how they should be gentle with themselves? So how about you offer that to yourself right now? What compassion can you overflow from your heart to say, it's okay that we were there for a little while. It's okay that it's been here. We've been learning a lot of lessons. We've been learning what we don't want. We've been able to do this, or we've been able to avoid that for a little while. And that's been nice, or it's been teaching us or giving us perspective. But now I'm going to have the courage to move beyond it. Any shame or any embarrassment that arises, don't push it away, but just let it be absorbed by the overflowing love in your heart. Let go of that belt. Now slowly come back up. It's going to feel a little imbalanced, and just take a little twist to the right after being so twisted in that arrow. to the other side. All right, now let's turn it around. We're going to extend the right leg this time and pull the left leg in. If you're sitting on that bolster, make sure the flesh of the buttocks goes straight back rather than out to the side. Pull it straight back, lengthening the hamstrings. All right, other side, we're going to reach the left arm out, get some nice spaciousness, and then perhaps we grab the outside of that foot. If not, you know what to do. You've got the belt there, and let yourself fold forward. Left ear coming down to that right knee, and that back arm, that right arm is just resting behind you. Enjoy. You've got 2 minutes here. See how you can be loving and compassionate in this pose. How can you wrap your heart and your love around this situation and how you've been being? Or around the situation with somebody you need to forgive. Realizing that offering forgiveness is not saying it's okay. It's simply freeing yourself from the prison you've been living in with the bars of resentment in front of you. Maybe you need to forgive yourself. This is a very powerful center, this heart chakra. It is the biggest force field that we have, bigger than the brain. So how can you use the power of this center and of the heart to turn the key and to free yourself from the confines of this reality, making way for a new one? And the chakras are very interesting the way that they work together, because sometimes we don't find the freedom until we recognize who we've been being in that third chakra and what we've been learning from it, how we've been growing, what kind of blessing is in the lesson. So how can you find gratitude in the heart and let it spill down to the reality that you've been living in? And allowing that gratitude to bubble up the perspective, the lesson, whatever goodness has come from this other reality that we're moving beyond. If we don't learn the lesson, we can be sure that that same scenario, in some form or another, will circle back to us and say, it's time to learn this. This is why we run into the same challenges in our life, whether we keep getting the same dead-end job, or we keep in the same dead-end relationship, or rob ourselves continuously of our own self-care. We keep going into the same patterns until we learn the lesson, and then we are freed from that. It's almost like collecting a puzzle piece, saying, oh, I've got it now. I'm going to bring it in and integrate it. Just a few more breaths in the second side of your twisted arrow. Just breathe. Let yourself soften. And when you're ready, let go of the belt, slowly rolling yourself up, and then taking a gentle counter twist to the left and coming back. Great work. Okay, for our next pose, we're going to do a full locust pose, but we're going to do it in a restorative fashion. So here's how we're going to set this up, and you're going to modify based on what props you got. I want you to grab, you know what I totally forgot? I forgot the third chakra oil and the fourth chakra. So let's go ahead and just have a little pause. The patchouli is a really great oil for the third chakra if you're needing motivation. If you feel like, I just want to get some stuff done, but I've got no drive. Patchouli is a great one for that. If you're on the other end of the spectrum, I would recommend perhaps rosemary is a good one too, to kind of calm that fire down. And let's do one more. I always forget because I get so into the others. The other one I would recommend for the heart chakra is ylang ylang. So ylang ylang, you can go ahead and grab and place right on the heart center if you've got that, or if you've got like a flowery one, or even a fir. I love that, like a Siberian fir or any sort of pine. Okay, now we're headed into the throat chakra. So again, if you've got a flowery chakra oil, or you've got Whisper Blend from doTERRA, also I think Breathe is a really great one too for that, or any pine is really nice as well. So go ahead and place that on your throat chakra. And now we're all caught up. All right, let's go ahead and take locust pose. So we'll take our 2 blocks, one at the highest height, and then the second one on the lowest height. So what we're doing is we're making a almost like a T-square. This first block is on the highest height, and this is on the lowest, but it's going lengthwise along our mat, as opposed to horizontally. Now from here, we're going to use both of our blankets or a bolster. If you've got a big bolster, you're just going to place the bolster on the floor and lay it up on the blocks. But if you have blankets, here we go. So 8 fold, and then we're going to fold it up again so that we have a nice tight 16th fold here, and lay it up on the blocks. And I like to use 2 blankets for this. So go ahead and do the same thing with your other blanket. From the 8th fold, folding it again lengthwise. And then go ahead and place this up on there. All right, so we have a nice ramp for ourselves. Now, if this ramp feels too high, you can always lower onto the floor and then lower this block. So the blocks can come down. You can just use 1 blanket. A lot of options here. Now I'll show you how to get into this because it's kind of weird. Okay, we're going to straddle our little structure back there with our knees. Going to lay down first on the floor, and then lifting the legs one at a time to come back on the bolster. Got it? Bring your feet all the way together, and if you tip over your bolster and you start over again, it's okay. It happens. It happens to me too. Turn your head to the side and let your arms rest by your sides. And just allow yourself to breathe in your full locust pose. Good. And if one leg needs to be down at a time and you want to switch, I'll tell you when to switch, okay? So if you just want one up there and you're kind of struggling, that's fine too, okay? So in your full locust or your half locust, I want you to close your eyes. We're now up to that 5th chakra, the center point of our communication, our connection to our ability to choose. The creation aspect of this chakra is truly unlimited. When we can take responsibility for how our lives is showing up, then we can make a change. We can change direction. If we're simply blaming circumstances or somebody else, then we're always going to be in that prison. We're always going to be stuck in that archetype of the victim. Like, life is happening to me, this isn't fair, I should be this by now, I should be that, he did this or she did that, and it's making me miserable. If we're not taking responsibility for our lives, our energy, how we're emoting, our physical body, our circumstances, our bank accounts, our level of contentment or lack thereof, then we are not able to make that change. Now, I love this pose, full locust or half, and you can switch if you're doing the half. We'll be here about another 2 minutes or so. I like this pose, and you can turn your head to the opposite side too, sorry. You can turn your head so that we're getting a nice stretch in that throat going the other way. In laying in a prone position with our chest towards the ground or our face toward the ground, it allows us to be more introspective. And sometimes when we're in more of a supine position with our back on the floor and our heart is open and we're kind of laid out, we feel more exposed and we're less likely to have more of an honesty with our self-reflection. It's kind of like the same thing when we're alone at home and what we do when we're by ourselves versus in public. Whatever we wear at home or how we act at home or the things that we kind of sneak around at home. Maybe we sneak that snack that we would never have in public, or we watch things that we would never admit. So it's very important in this pose, being prone and folded into the floor, that we have an opportunity to reflect on how we can take responsibility for this being in our life. Maybe this old reality has really been more like a comfort, a security blanket. Maybe it's been our excuse for why we're not moving on. Maybe it's been the scapegoat for our not being happy or taking that risk. About another 10 breaths. Maybe this old reality is keeping you safe, not happy, but in the familiar, in your comfort zone. How can you take responsibility more so, not to shame yourself, but just to put yourself back in the driver's seat? To have the ability to influence your responses from life or from other people. Responsibility. And the final breaths here, just allow that overwhelming and overflowing loving compassion from the heart flow up to the throat as you're owning the accountability of this reality. Good. Now slowly lower the legs on either side, and then you can press yourself up, walking your knees forward to rest in child's pose. Take a moment just to rest. Okay, go ahead and roll up. We're going to take one of our blankets and place it towards one end of our mat, toward the back of our mat. You're going to sit up on that blanket and extend your legs forward. Now, depending on the flexibility of the back of the leg, you'll stack your blocks accordingly so that the forehead can rest down on the block. You want to make sure that your head is supported, and that third eye point is gently pressing with the weight of gravity into something. So come into your pose, and if you need some extra help with setup, I'm going to show you how to do that. So you can roll up another blanket and bend the knees so that you can fold a little bit easier underneath. You can stack the blocks on top of that bolster or that blanket and let yourself rest here as far as you want to go. Okay, those of you who are very, very flexible, what I'd recommend is taking blocks underneath of your feet. This is not me, by the way, so I'll try and fake it. Bringing the feet up, and then allow yourself to bring your arms underneath, supporting the knee, and then place the head on the floor. Okay, that's how you get into a deeper stretch if you want it. Now, in this pose and folding into yourself, if you've got clary sage oil, if you've got lavender, anything like that, go ahead and grab it And you can place it right underneath of your nose, underneath your head, dripping over it. So you can just breathe it in without having to hold it. Or you can apply it right on the forehead if it's a therapeutic grade oil. Clary sage or lavender, it helps to really stimulate the energies of the sixth chakra. And folding into yourself, we've just been reflecting on how we can take more accountability or responsibility for having created that old paradigm and bought into it for so long. If it were something that was initiated by a victimization or a perpetration of violence against us or a trauma, no, that wasn't your fault. And it's not about faulting yourself. It's about what you did with it after the trauma. And sometimes we need to be wrapped in the space of being away from everybody. We need to be cocooned and allow ourselves just to do what we need to do in order to survive and overcome the trauma, the shock. But then there comes a time when we keep it in place because it's almost like we don't even know who we are without it. We don't know how to go beyond it. And that takes a lot of courage. And if you're not ready to take that step yet, find the compassion of the heart. And open yourself up to intuition. In this forward fold, you are now connecting with the sixth chakra, the center point of your intuition. Now, nobody has access to this intuition except you. Nobody quite has the imagination or the insight as you. It is your life. This is why you can ask 10 people advice around something you want to do. But you usually know what you're going to do before you even ask that advice, right? If you're listening deeply to this center and allowing the energy of the sixth chakra, ajna, center point of our intuition, to speak to you and integrate it into your reality, you'll see something you didn't see before. You'll harness all of the wisdom you have, everything you've been through before, so that you'll know and you'll be clear, the clear seeing that you need to take the next step. So having accepted this, having processed the emotions, understood the identities and the archetypes, finding new ones to step into, bringing the element of love with the heart and compassion and forgiveness, and then coming into taking accountability for what you're choosing and how you're creating, and then bringing in the element of what's next. What is next? What's the next step? So we'll be here about 1 more minute. And in that minute, I want you to just be open. If you can flip your palms up wherever they are, let them face upwards if it's comfortable. But just say to yourself, I am open, I am listening. I know, I know. How many times do we say, I don't know? I know. And allow your old wise woman or your old wise man within to meet you, to look you in the eyes and to say, this is your next step. This is what you're inclined to do. This might be the trap, but we know better now. So we're going to make this different choice. Listen to that intuition nudging you from within. What is it saying? Good. And now, slowly roll yourself up. Go ahead and place your props to the side. And after you've rolled up and you've got your legs still forward, just bring your hands back behind you and counter that stretch by lifting the chest and just rocking side to side with the torso. Great. All right, the next and final pose is called sleeping butterfly. So in order to set this pose up, it's two parts. We're going to take our two blocks and place them just on the lowest height behind us, okay, just alongside the mat. You don't even need the blocks. If you just want to roll up a blanket, that's great too. We can place our folded up blankets right over top, or if you've got a big long bolster you want to lay on that, that's great too. Now, if you need a little cover, if you get cold, I know our body temperature lowers when we're relaxing, so you can always place the blanket on top or elevate your support underneath of your back. Now, let's go ahead and grab the belts. If you don't have a belt and you don't have a strap and you just have a belt, I would take this blanket instead, the second blanket, quarter fold. It takes a little bit of setup. So you gotta have patience with yourself and me. Thank you. Roll it up so it's a long bolster. Soles of the feet are gonna come together and you'll just fold this underneath of the knees. But if you do have a belt, make sure it's at least got a big enough loop here. And place that belt around you and move the belt down to your sacrum, over the knees, so make sure your knees are open first, over the feet and underneath of the ankles. So make sure that that belt is really low on your back and tighten up the strap, okay? Slide it around, make sure it's low. I know it's hard to see because I'm wearing black, but just tighten it up. Once you've got this position, and it looks like this from the front if that helps, once you've got this position, make sure your hips are right next to that bolster. Tuck the tailbone under just a little bit so you've got a nice spaciousness in your back. And lay down. Cross the arms over you, giving yourself a hug. And now we're in the sleeping butterfly position. Close your eyes and rest here. Find your position. We're going to be here about 3 minutes. Once you've arrived, go ahead and just soften everything. Let yourself settle in this pose, giving way your body weight to gravity. Feeling the support of the blocks or the props underneath of you. And if the knees are bothering you at all, just extend your legs long. Having moved through all of the chakras now, if you've got frankincense and you want to grab that or any more etheric, I love elevation too for this chakra elevation oil. Just breathe that in and let your palms face upwards wherever they are. Receiving. We've come to the 7th chakra, our connection to the universe, our connection to God, our connection to oneness, to each other, the unseen forces in our lives, the guides, the angels, the synchronicities, the sacredness of the weaving together of our lives. So in this moment, the final moments of your practice today, can you open the crown right on the top of your head to receive any wisdom that far supersedes your own, the guidance that you so desire when you feel like you're hitting a brick wall or all you're meeting are dead ends. Listen in a higher place, connecting with Source, connecting with the patterns and the formulas of this beautiful human journey and the unseen help all around us. Connecting with that interconnectedness, that oneness. About one more minute. Opening yourself fully. Doing great. Letting go and letting God. Letting go and receiving help. Connecting to that oneness. Maybe it's time to ask someone for help. Someone in your life who can truly assist you, who can provide some guidance, who could be the extension of that oneness so that you can reap the benefits of that wisdom. Good. And if you still have your belt around your legs, you can unsnap it or just loosen it up and extend those legs out. So you're in your pose now. Just rock your legs in and out. Press your elbows into the floor and slowly roll yourself up. And let's take a cross-legged position to close our practice. You can support your hips with a blanket or a bolster. Let your palms face up now, going from the root chakra, groundedness, all the way up to the crown, receptivity. Feel the connection to the earth and your separateness being in your own body, in your own life, and then all the way connected to the source, to the oneness, to the heavens, experiencing yourself as one and at one with all things everywhere. Bring the palms together in front of your heart center, reminding yourself here with closed eyes, life isn't about finding yourself. It's about creating yourself. Let's share one Om together to close. Inhale. Namaste. Thank you so much for joining me for AromaYIN. And I'm Anne-Margaret. Until next time, keep raising the vibration. Thanks so much, everybody.